Stephen Joyce, while you were at the Wildlife Centre, did you get an idea, or is anyone able to give an idea of how many wildlife have been affected, how many dead birds have been found, anything like that?
I'm not sure whether anybody has the numbers. Have you got the numbers here at this point?
We've got several hundred dead reported through to us, and there's around 50 to 70 birds being treated. 4 seals and dotterels are probably most important with preemptive capture.
They have set up in addition to that, they have set up a dotterel program where they've taken some of the rare dotterels from their sites around the region and are resettling them in a special area at the World Wildlife Centre in their own space. The dotterels are over the back, being quietly looked after because they are, of course, very rare, and they want to make sure that, as they do with a lot of the birds, that they can save them, and that's very important.
Can you just run through those numbers
Nick,
again, just so
Mortality is starting to increase for us in terms of the oiled birds coming in from sea. There's several hundred dead reported that have not been collected yet. We're around 50 to 70 oiled birds being treated at the moment, and there has been some preemptive capture of the New Zealand dotterel, as the Minister said. 7 dotterels are sitting well away from the oil at the moment, and I think there's some capture of some seals going on as well.
Nick, while you're there, can I just ask you how much of a disappointment the fact that the dispersant isn't working is? How much of a setback is that?
It's one of many different options, one of several different options that we have, as Lee referred to, in our toolbox, and we have other options we fall back onto. With this particular operation, this particular oil that's on the beach, we're looking at a shoreline cleanup, so it's really shovels and bags and getting the oil off the beach. We were quite aware of the type of oil that was actually within the vessel, and dispersant was not so much of a prime option, but it was an option that, if it had been effective, would have been very good for us just to limit the amount of oil coming ashore. And environmentally, the use of dispersants does reduce, the effective use of dispersants does reduce the mortality of some of the wildlife out in the ocean, but in this case we're now starting to suffer some high mortality rates.
Do you have an estimate of how much oil is left today?
We are working on around 350 tonnes or cubic metres. I'll pass over to Bruce.
One of the things we've been doing is keeping a constant fuel budget. And so it's not a precise science, but what we understand is, you recall that there were 4 main fuel tanks. The 2 forward ones, we managed to empty the one port 3 into port 5. Port 5 now has 770 tonnes of heavy fuel oil in it. Starboard 3 was the one that had about 175 in it. Starboard 3 has been breached, and that has gone into the water. Starboard 5 is underwater, and we can't tell whether that's breached or not, but we haven't seen any signs of an oil escape from that region. There are 2 other large accumulations of oil in settling tanks inside the vessel, and they each have about 100 tonnes of oil in it. So that's the budget that we're working on. So we've got about 1,000 tonnes that we're pretty comfortable is in there. We're pretty aware is in there. We've got thermal imagery which tells us that the oil is hot, so it tells us that the oil is in there and we can see it. The 356 tonnes which is in starboard 5, we can't see because it's not hot enough and it's under the water. But because we haven't seen any signs of oil escaping, that's what we believe is still there.
So there wasn't an oil spill today, or there was more oil coming?
This is just residual oil from the hold. So as the waves work in the cracks of the vessel, oil that's accumulated in there comes out of it in smaller pockets. When I went over this morning, there was a light sheen over the oil, over the surface. It wasn't a thick coating of oil, but there's still a good amount of oil, a substantial amount of oil in there, but it's not the big black streaks that you're seeing coming out of the vessel.
So what's the estimated total?
Pardon?
What's the estimated total that's been lost?
The best way is that we're fairly confident there's 1,000 tonnes there. We're less sure about another 356 tonnes, but we think it's there. So that's about the fuel budget. And remembering that there was 1,673 tonnes of oil when we started early on. So that's what we're sort of working on.
So is that the best case, what about 350 to get down, but up to 750?
The 750, as I say, we're pretty confident that's there because you can see that in the thermometry, and the other 200 tonnes were also, that's actually quite hot. You can see that quite white hot. So we're quite confident that's there and that's okay. It's just we don't know about that other 357 tonnes.
Can someone tell me, you guys pressed for volunteers today, how many came forward today specifically? Because I understand before that you guys had 50 to 100, so that's gone up to how much?
Yes, the system today was at the Manu Surf Club. There were an extra 80 volunteers were trained. Now what will happen is by tomorrow they will pick up another team of 10 volunteers, also aided and assisted by either someone from the Ministry of Defence or a contractor. So what will happen is you'll go from 80 to 800 relatively quickly, and they'll be dispersed along the beach as and when required to support the existing contracting staff.
I mean, how many have, I know they still have to go through training, but through the website, how many have put the training up today?
In excess of 1,000 that have registered already, and we expect that to grow. As I said, there was a technical glitch because of the overload that has been remedied, and now with the new website which is being displayed, as well as the 0800 number, both for general volunteers as well as EV, we expect it to grow dramatically.